Today we're looking at the difference that 20 years makes. That's right, in the bag I've got 3 different Ping drivers, generational drivers from the last 20 years. We're going to take them out on the course, get some numbers with a GC quad and see what difference 20 years makes between these 3 drivers. Okay, so let's take a look at the Ping drivers in question. First of all, shout out to the battered head cover, but yeah, still got it intact, over 20 years old. We've got the iconic Ping G2. I mean, what a driver this was. Real iconic sort of Ping legend. I mean, how good is it to see the 460cc on the driver head there? You don't see that anymore, which I think shows what this driver was all about. It was all about the size of it, the depth of the face, the kind of huge head. I remember kind of 20 years ago when I was first getting into golf, my dad had his driver, all his mates in his 4-ball had this driver, it was in all the pro shops, that kind of iconic blue that Ping stuck with for a few years. I mean, to be honest, you put it down as well, it still looks pretty good. It's still got that nice kind of classic shape, but I can't wait to see how this one performs. The next driver, another legend, Ping G440, the head cover in slightly better condition. Now this driver came out in 2018, so 7 years old. Awesome driver. This is actually my old driver that I used for about 2 or 3 years, maybe a little bit longer. And like, I mean, I work in golf equipment, and so obviously I get access to a lot of different golf clubs, and I chose this for 3 or 4 years. Up until a couple of years ago, I changed this out. So it just shows the kind of longevity, the kind of flexibility that this head has. It just looks awesome, down by the ball, performs really well, and there's still players, especially on the Champions Tour. I think this head is just still so sought after. I mean, just putting it down straight away, yeah, gives me good vibes. I love this head, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it performs. And then last but not least, we've got Ping's latest driver offering, the 2025 G440. Now, just taking the head cover off straight away, totally different. The only thing's quite similar actually is you've got that kind of blue colour scheme that we've seen in the G drivers, the G2, the G4. It's kind of, you know, Ping's kind of colour really. They always go back to the blue, but yeah, straight away you look at this, so much more modern, so much more contemporary. You've got the flashes of carbon there, you've got the weights in at the back, you've got, you know, just a much more modern footprint down by the ball. Okay, we're going to start with the newest first. We've not got a quad set up yet, but I just want to get some first impressions. It's 3 or 4 balls with each. We've got the G440 first. Straight away, like, you put this driver down by the ball and it looks like almost like an amalgamation of all the Ping drivers of the last 20 years. I know that's quite an obvious thing to say, but it just looks like the most Ping looking driver ever. It's got the turbulators, it's got that bit of carbon on the back. It's got that really like wide face. It's got the white lines. It just looks so Ping. It's not a bad start. Yeah, it's a solid sound. It's got that Ping sound, you know, the kind of high-pitched, hollow ting. But it's not too loud. It's not as loud as what I thought the G425 was from a couple of years ago. Another good one. I mean, I leaked that a little. It's a solid driver, it really is. That's the first few hit with the G440. If you want to see the full review from Gina, go and catch that on our channel, where she talks much more about how the G440 was a bit more focused on ball speed this year for Ping. Normally you associate them with forgiveness. This year they kind of put themselves out there and went, we're going after speed and ball speed. So go and check that out on the Golfalot channel. Next up, Ping G400. Looking forward to this one. Just looks awesome down by the ball. It's a bit busy actually. There's a little bit more going on the back of the head, but it's got those turbulators. It's a great shape, this driver. Let's give it a hit. It sounds straight away, it sounds more, I think it's a bit louder, it's a bit more like metallic, but not in a bad way. It's not got that really hollow sound. It sounds more like, sounds a bit more like a Callaway driver or a Titleist driver, I think, this Ping G400, which at the time, I think a lot of people loved it for that. It didn't have that kind of big tingy noise. That's the shot I'm used to seeing with this driver. High, little draw. I just love this drive. It sounds so solid and it just gives me so much confidence. And I think it gives so many golfers so much confidence and still does. Great driver. And now the G2 driver. I've not held this driver now and hit a ball with this for honestly 15 years, something like that. It is a lot different when you put it down. Still like the shape of it, still got a good shape. I'll tell you what I really like when you put this down by the ball is that kind of old Ping alignment aid. I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing, but they had that on the G4 drivers, they had it on the Rapture I think, and then it changed and they kind of brought the turbulators in later, but I love that kind of faded, kind of half moon alignment aid. I just think it looks really cool. Yeah, the feel's totally different. Sounds awesome though. It sounds class. It's got that really sort of, again, it sounds obvious, but metal feel to it. Feels pretty fast. Doesn't feel as forgiving, nowhere near, but it still feels good. Before we get into the data testing, I just want to talk to you about the specifics of the specs of these three heads. Now there is a little bit of difference. Obviously we're looking at a driver from 2004 right through to 2025, but we've tried our best to kind of get things as close as possible. So the G440 Max, this is a 9-degree head, but I've got it cranked up to 10 degrees and I've got it in the Ping Alta CB stiff shaft. Now, the G400, this is the standard head. This is a 10.5 head, but I've got it cranked down to 10, and I've got this in the standard Alta CB stiff shaft as well. Ideally, what we'd have done is put this G440 shaft in this head, so we've got exactly the same shaft, but we can't do that because the hosels are slightly different, so you can't actually do that. They've changed that. So from the G410, you could have actually put that shaft in, but you can't do that with the G400. But still, the same like-for-like shaft, just different iterations of it. So it gets a little different. The G2, obviously this was quite hard to get it in exactly the same. So I've got this in the old Ping TFC 100 reg shaft, okay? And this is in 11.5. So when we look at the data, bear that in mind. There's obviously going to be a bit of a difference there. We're going from stiff to regular, and there's 1.5 degrees of difference in loft. So as I say, take the data with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Just wanted to use this for some context there. Okay, so we've put the quad down now. We're on this par 5, the 6th hole at Stockport Golf Club. We're going to start with the G440 Max. So left those last couple out to the left a little bit. Probably me just catching them out of the toe, but they're still flying really well. Just catch them out of the toe and just pulling those a little bit and riding on the wind. See, I can't hit it much better than that. It's interesting there, that last one. I didn't catch that well at all, kind of bottom of the toe, left the face open a little bit, but still the strike feels solid. Forgiving, quite fast, even on those miss hits. On to the second driver, the G400. To launch a little bit higher straight off the bat, that one. Yeah, it's definitely launching higher, this driver. I wonder if that would be affecting the distance. I mean, it probably is. Similar to the G440, it's just so stable through that hitting zone. But what I will say is I prefer the sound of this driver. Sounds better, I don't know whether it feels better, but it definitely sounds better. G400 done. Now let's get on to the exciting part. Let's get this Ping G2 tested on a GC quad. Honestly, I do love the look of this head. Love the look of the shape of it. Wow. I don't think that's going to produce the greatest numbers. 208 carry straight away. Big difference. Oh, rip that one. That was a better strike. The numbers of that. 228, better, still nowhere near. And that backspin there, 4-4 backspin. Okay, last one with a G2. Oh, that's a better strike. Such high launch though. I tell you what, when you hit this out of the middle, and I'm not just saying this from like a nostalgia, romanticism point of view, it feels better out of the middle. It's just so refreshing to have that kind of real metal wood, meat of the club feel out of the G2. Be interesting to look at the numbers though, because I think there's a big difference between the two more modern drivers to the 20-year-old Ping G2. Okay, so before I start looking at the numbers, I just wanted to come to a different hole. We've got a little bit of a dog leg here round to the right. It's tight. We've got the bunker on the right as well and the trees on the left. So I just wanted a bit of a different perspective. I want to literally hit one with each of the models. Then we'll get into the data. Then we'll get into all that analysis and good stuff. And I'll give you a verdict on kind of this 20-year test. The launch on this thing is hilarious. Okay, it's into wind. It's a tough shot, but this thing is literally going up my nose. The launch is that high on it. Unbelievable. I mean, I've not hit that well at all. Out of the heel, a little bit cutty, but it's still decent. It still feels good. This thing's just like your best mate. It's a great driver. Okay, final hit with a G440. Let's end on a good one. Oh, rip that. Again, it's gone quite high on the wind, but that's such a good test that to just hit one consecutively and go through 2004, 2018, 2025, sorry, and just feel the difference instantly. Okay, let's get into the data. We've come off the golf course now and let's talk through the kind of differences between the G2, the G400 and the G440. Starting with the G2 from 2004. Obviously, we've got to take into account the specs of the drivers. This was a reg shaft, it was 11.5 degrees, but we did try and get them as close together as possible. Ball speed, we were averaging 144 in ball speed, so a lot lower than I kind of expect. Then if we look at the launch, obviously again, 11.5 degree driver. It was launching at 16 degrees, which is huge. I wouldn't want that. I kind of said that when I was hitting him, it was shooting straight up in the air, not that penetrating ball flight that you want at all. And then this is the big number. So backspin, you're looking at 4,600 RPM, which is huge. Obviously, if with a driver, you want to be getting around 2,500, between that and 3,000, maybe even lower with these modern low spin drivers. So 4.6 is just huge, way out of it. Carry wise, you're looking at 218 average for carry and then a total of 226. Again, way less than I'd expect, but you've got to take into account the shaft and the launch, so not too bad. Moving on to the G400, so my old driver, you've got a big jump here straight away in ball speed of an average of 150. Launch again quite high at 15 degrees, and also the spin too high. We've got 3,800 spin, way too high. So I think if I had that custom fitted for me, got lower degrees of loft, maybe a different shaft, if I could get that launch down, I love that drive. It performed really well. Carry, you're looking a bit better at 238, obviously 20 yards jump there from the G2. And in total, you're looking at 247, a bit closer to what I'd be expecting, around that 250, 260 yard mark. Finally, the G440. Interestingly, straight away, my average ball speed was down by 1 mile an hour. Obviously 1 mile an hour is very, very small, but it's down a little bit on the G400. But it launched lower, down at 13, and there was a bit lower spin as well, down at 3,400. Again, still too much spin probably. You'd have to look at maybe getting custom fitted to knock that spin down. But that actually only equated to 1 more yard in carry. So if you look at the G400, I was getting average 238, 440, 239. And in total, that was only really equating to 3 more yards at an average of 250. Okay, so just to wrap up on these numbers, the last thing I want to look at, which is probably the most interesting really, which is not a massive surprise, is the standard deviation when you're looking at the carry. Now the G2, I've got an average of 10 yards difference, so that front to back average, 10 yards. So the consistency is just nowhere near there. G400, that's 5.5 yards, so 6 yards difference, slightly more consistent. And then the G440, as expected, the standard deviation on the carry is only 2 yards. So you can see there how over the years it's just improved in consistency and consistency. There's more forgiveness, there's more tech in the heads. Quite an interesting one, that one to finish on. Okay, that's it, that's my testing done out on the golf course. That's my data analysis done as well. Really, really interesting test, this one. I really enjoyed actually seeing it. So kind of what's my verdict on this whole thing? I think I really, really enjoyed it in the G2. Feeling that old school kind of metallic sound and feel again, really good. I wish we could kind of capture that in new drivers because it feels like it's gone a little bit. I love the shape of it, but clearly the performance wasn't quite there. G400, having my old personal driver back in the bag was great. What an awesome driver that is. Honestly, you could play that today and I would see very, very, very little difference on the kind of modern drivers 5 years on. But I think with the G440, what's really interesting is that even though Ping this year, their stories around ball speed and hitting the ball further, clearly you're still getting that forgiveness, more forgiveness than 5, 6 years ago, and certainly a lot more forgiveness than about 20 years ago. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. There's loads more review content coming up on the Golfalot channel. As always, subscribe for more.